I'm happy to be here. This is a great subject because, as much opportunity digital media has delivered, it also doesn't do everything quite as well as we want it to. For example, it doesn't match magazine layouts. It doesn't read the same way that a magazine does. People are hunting instead of being taken on a sort of curated journey. They don't pay attention to the ads. So it was interesting when Flipboard came along in 2010 and pulled together everything into a gorgeous package. This was social, it was traditional, it was new media, it was what you wanted to read, and it was in a magazine-like format and a sort of curated experience, even if the meaning of curation had changed. Apple called this the best iPad app of 2010. That seemed to have an effect. There were a lot of other players that quickly came into the space. There's Livestand, Pulse, Currents, several others. So the question, though, that I think hasn't quite been answered yet is how good this is all for magazines. Is this a great way to engage your existing readers, or is this a great way to add readers? Both, probably. But what about revenue? What about business? What about selling print subscriptions? What about advertising? Are these guys just another digital interloper coming in between publishers and readers and taking a cut along the way? So we're gonna work that out. We're gonna figure it out. The panel here today is Josh Quittner, editorial director at Flipboard and a longtime Time Inc. vet, and Bruce Upbin, managing editor at Forbes Media. Scott Haven from The Atlantic was going to be with us today, but his flight is delayed, so we are going to take it all on ourselves. To begin with, though, I think Josh is going to give us a sort of mile-high view of Flipboard, right?
Sure. So I'll whip through this because I certainly don't intend for this to be an advertisement for Flipboard. So Flipboard, as you say, has been around for a year and a half. We've got about 8 million users, and we do about 1.5 billion page views a month at this point. And it was started by a guy named Mike McHugh, a serial entrepreneur, and he loves print. He has always been a magazine freak. He loves design. He loves the beauty of the page. And he also happened to be on the founding team of Netscape, which I think plays a very large part in his psyche and why he wanted to do Flipboard. Basically, after running a couple of successful companies and sitting around on the beach one day, he conducted a thought experiment in which he said, what would happen if we woke up one morning and somebody had just deleted the web? That the web as we know it is gone. And yet we know what this thing is, so we could rapidly rebuild it and avoid some of the pitfalls that the browser-based desktop world has created. What would we do? He said, well, we know social is really, really huge. Stories come to us these days. The things that really matter come to us from our friends. And this whole endless scroll thing of the web, not so good. The advertising experience isn't really that great. I mean, we spent thousands of years on endless scrolls and only some hundreds of years on pages. And pages work a hell of a lot better. They're beautiful. They create this natural interstitial when you turn a page, which turns out to be perfect for full-page advertisements. But the little blinky ads that exist on either side of articles on the web are, at best, forgettable, and at worst, a terrible nuisance. We all have had that experience where we're trying to read something that has been referred to us, and suddenly the ad pulls over across it, like some kind of horrific game or bad dream.
We make a lot of money off those kind of ads.
If it works for you, I'm sure it's good. But it doesn't work for users. Users hate it, and it creates this sort of animosity between the user and the content. Anyway, so we said, let's rethink this whole thing and see if we can create a way to restore pagination and the beauty of print, the beauty of magazines, and put social at the forefront. So I like to think of Flipboard as almost a giant stereo receiver, where you can plug lots of stuff into the background. You can plug in your DVD player, and you can plug in your television, and you can plug in your Blu-ray disc player. And in the front, you've got dials that allow you to make beautiful music. In our case, you can plug in virtually any kind of social network, whether it's Facebook or Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram. They all are services that you can add. And you can subscribe to content, subscribe for free, meaning you can favorite certain kinds of content. And when you do that, Let's see if that works. There. OK. So under layout view, that would be what you would see for kind of the top page in your Facebook feed. And it's got various stories that people have shared with you. And you'll see that top story there. Below it is a web view. And that's because I don't even remember which, I can't see it. I don't remember who it is. But is this showing? Yeah, it is. OK. We're not partners with that publisher. So if you touch the story, that bottom part there spawns a web view, and we take you directly to their site. However, if you're enlightened like Forbes, and you're a partner of ours, along with 65, 70 other partners, you give us permission to scrape your website, and we do this via Twitter or RSS, and we create templates on our back end that pour that content into a beautiful paginated format. And that, of course, not only looks beautiful and is a wonderful experience, but it creates this natural interstitial for full-page ads. We only do full-page ads. We don't do any little blinky things. You know, it's just advertising as all the people in this room know and love. And that, in a nutshell, is our model.
Very good. Bruce?
Yeah.
Would you like to talk to us about what you're doing on these platforms?
Sure, yeah. I mean, Forbes' mantra is ubiquity and accessibility. We want to be where everybody is. So we love Flipboard. I mean, we're early on Flipboard. Not early, super early, but about a year ago. And I forget who it was. It was either Marcy or someone reached out and I said, let's do it, because I love what it looked like. But we're also on Google Currents. We're on Yahoo Livestand. And the numbers are pretty awesome that we've managed to attract. We have 460,000 some odd subscribers on Flipboard. And if you add up all the Google Currents properties we have, it's about 900,000 subscribers. We're fortunate by being in the launch of Currents, so that was great. And engagement's really, it's gone off the charts with Flipboard especially. I mean, since since September roughly, the number of flips per subscriber, monthly reader, has doubled, more than doubled. It's something like 20 pages they flip through in a reading session. So I don't know how that compares with it's better than our website. That's the thing. See, if you're Flipboard was gonna come anyway, and they're gonna scrape your site anyway. People are doing that all over the place. So you might as well make it the best damn experience you can, and then let them take a cut. I mean, because they've invested the money in one of the best reading experiences out there. I mean, Currents is great, looks kind of like Flipboard. Livestand is great, kind of looks like Flipboard. In fact, we worked with Google to make our design template the same on Currents as Flipboard. Where was I? So it's going to come, so we might as well, magazine publishers aren't going to spend the money that Flipboard spent to do that technology. I mean, if they do, great, but most of them can't do it. So you might as well let them take a cut and then make some money once they start opening up the cash register, which is going to happen soon. I mean, I wish I could break the news here that we have deals with advertisers on Currents and Flipboard, but we're really close. It's a matter of less than months, more than weeks.
And did you have some images?
Oh, yeah, sure. Sorry. So I wanted to show you what it looks like to be a publisher on one of these things. So that's Livestand. It's kind of as this table of contents approach. It mirrors our site. See, Forbes is a lot more than the magazine. We're half and half digital print in revenue, and we put out a lot more content than the magazine ever could. And we put out, on a good day, 300 articles a day. So our Twitter feeds are very active. That's what we look like on the Currents homepage. See, there's the featured publishers that came out, and then that's my account. So those are my RSS feeds. See, the difference, Currents is RSS, and Flipboard is Twitter. And RSS is kind of a passive thing for most publishers. Whatever you set it up, and it just goes. Whereas Twitter, there's people working in it. If those of you who have social editors, social media editors, you know you've invested a lot of money in making your Twitter feed great. So you might as well optimize it. That's our publisher page on Currents. You get to do some bedazzle on the left there. We have a couple of properties on Currents. This is a cover stories app. We actually build this every time an issue comes out. So you can have video, you kind of have an archive on the right, and then Spanx on the left. And that's what an article page looks like on Currents. And that's us on Flipboard. See, during the week, sometimes Flipboard, every week they feature different publishers. So, if you're a good citizen in their ecosystem or have great content, you might find yourself in the premium position. Otherwise, you're in alphabetical order. And that's a page on Flipboard. See, it's very brand forward. That's what I like about it. I mean, a great magazine, social mag app is social first, but then brand is very big. If you look at apps like Zite or Pulse, you're kind of one of many. But here you get to stick the Forbes name way up high, and your writer, the byline's up high. And it's this is our sports money feed. We have about 5 feeds that are on Flipboard. The Money Builder, personal finance, and then ads. As a house ad. Oh, and you can see what a slideshow looks like. Sorry, I got more slides. A slideshow. Yeah, you can, and we want to work with to make that better. By the way, to make our photos bigger and the captions better.
Well, we'll drill down into ads and potential approaches to advertising in a second, but I wondered if you guys could talk a little bit more about what it takes to be a partner, Flipboard, obviously, since we've got you here, Josh, to get recommended kind of high up when people are browsing for news sources to contribute. And, from the Forbes perspective, how much work that is. If I go to the example of the iPad where there's so much potential in the iPad editions, but it's not free of extra labor, time, money. There's a commitment here. So I'm interested in the pros and cons.
So with most of it, it's not that much. I mean, the one I showed you, the cover stories app on Currents, on Google Currents, takes a little bit of setup. But we have, it's in the workflow already. There's assets that the design department emails to the developer who builds it. And Google gives you tools to do that. Flipboard, we already have this guy, Alex Knapp, who's great, who's on our Twitter feeds all day long. So it's the same work. We don't have to do anything extra, and now we can get paid for it. What we do need to do is change our schedule sometimes. Flipboard, all these apps, especially Flipboard, the period of most active engagement is not during the business day when most of our writers are publishing. So we have, Alex has to remember to, do more Flipboard, more. Longer reads can go out at night. You can do slideshows on Saturday morning. You could do op-eds on Saturday morning, kind of replicate the TV experience a little bit.
And are you doing that with in this example, the one Twitter feed? Would it make more sense to separate it out and have one that was really thinking about Flipboard 24 hours a day?
Not right now. No, I don't think we need to yet.
And that's not our model. I mean, we are meant to capitalize on what you normally do. The whole secret to succeeding, I think, on Flipboard is you've got a nice, robust Twitter feed, and we make it look beautiful, and we allow you to monetize it.
Right. Yeah, because Twitter's not going to allow us to monetize it. That's for sure.
There are interesting things that I think we're going to be able to do, and little experiments. I'm always trying to talk my friend Terry McDonald at SI into doing, taking a special cut of Sports Illustrated's content and targeting at a specific demographic at a certain time or during a certain event. That's something that we can do, but that too ought to be very, very simple on the content providers, on the publishers' part. It's a pretty frictionless system. You were asked earlier, how do you get featured? How does the partnership work? One of my jobs is to oversee a tiny team of Twitterers who program these Flipboard branded channels like business and sports and technology and news. And it turns out that 65% of the traffic to a lot of our partners comes via those channels.
Yeah.
So because Forbes is so prolific and our primary business partner, we're directing a lot of traffic from our business channel to that. And that in turn creates affinity and causes people to subscribe to or favorite Forbes.
You mentioned earlier that publishers, enlightened publishers like Forbes, are paying attention and putting in extra effort. Is it purely enlightenment, or are there partners that you guys are going to work with a little bit down the road? Right now, you got to concentrate.
Yeah, the reality is we're a tiny organization. We have about 65 people, and we've been very selective at the outset in terms of who we're partnering with, because we wanted to partner with magazines and newspapers that had the wherewithal to sell their own advertising, and we wanted them to have the same sort of values as we did in terms of the primacy of the content and how beautiful it ought to be, And we also wanted patience. I mean, it would not be hard to go out and sell an enormous amount on an application like this, an enormous amount of advertising in the first couple of months. That's not going to work. It's not going to do a good job for anyone. And we really are trying to resist the same kind of gravitational pull that dragged the web into the hellhole that it is now. You know, we don't want little blinky ads. We don't want to do all that stuff. That is not what the reader wants. We're about the reader first. And Mike McHugh is passionate about being the reader's advocate. That's why if you look up, you know, hashtag Flipboard, it's like this embarrassing love fest. People, they're like passionate about this application. This is sort of classic, you know, technology company Silicon Valley thinking now is first get 100 million users, the rest will follow. So we're not that worried about it. And so it's a terrific, you know, pleasure to work with Forbes and Condés of the world and Hearst because they're patient, they get the plan, they understand it. We're experimenting together, we're sharing our information, and you know, pretty soon we'll roll up our sleeves and start raking it in.
Let's talk about what that's going to look like.
Yeah.
You know, obviously last fall there was the example where Condé Nast teamed up with Flipboard and sold ads into their bespoke Flipboard feeds for, I think it was Vogue, New Yorker, and Bon Appetit, and there was a rev share there. That's not an ongoing program, it was an experiment if I understand correctly. Could you talk about what you learned and bring me up to speed, bring us up to speed on what's happening now?
On the advertising front.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we're just doing full page ads at this point. We're resistant to a lot of the bells and whistles of the kind of multimedia presentations that you see on the really large downloadable apps. Because we kind of feel like it has to work fast. There's nothing more ridiculous than turning a page and then looking at a spinner, you know. To wait for somebody to sell you something. That's like, it's like kind of the iPad equivalent of the robocalls, you know. So we don't want to do that. We want it to be right there. We want it to be beautiful. I've never heard anyone say that the advertisements in their favorite magazines were bad. It may be the only form of advertising that we all kind of believe in. If it works, it's beautiful, it's relevant, it's powerful, it's engaging. You're super engaged when you're looking at a great magazine. In the same way, we know that session times on Flipboard are, you know, 8 to 10 times what you see on the web. I mean, you said it. People like go through it. They get pulled.
I don't know whether they click on touch on the ad that much. We've only run house ads. I mean, and you know they convert okay, but the data is not at all significant enough. There's a lot of what if questions about selling on Flipboard. I mean, and I mean, Currents is going to come out with ads. I think for us maybe sooner, but because there you've got the whole power of Google behind you. You've got the ad serving technology. Flipboard's a little more handmade, where you have to actually physically put ads in, take them out, put them in, take them out. The analytics is a big issue, whether they're the kinds that publishers need. And for a lot of publishers, even us, it's a what is it kind of question when you go to the market. Well, you could be in print and web, and then we have this thing, Flipboard. So do you package it in as a value add with a broader pages and banners deal, or is it something super special? I mean, are salesmen incent motivated enough to cut one of those deals? That's all these issues have to get worked out.
Yeah, and another difference between I think the Flipboard experience and others is we don't sell on CPM, and we encourage our publishers not to sell on CPM. Right? It's more rate-based. We try and use the same terminology as the magazine industry, and you have 200,000 or 300,000 or 600,000, you know, subscribers or users. Sell it based on that, and at this preliminary juncture, that seems to be working pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, we have almost 500,000 subs on Flipboard. That's a pretty decent-sized magazine.
In terms of engagement around advertising, you know, unfortunately, a lot of our evidence is anecdotal, but we hear over and over again among our partners who use that space to sell reefers to their native apps. You know, like USA Today will take a full-page ad that points to the USA Today native app, and we find it's typically the case that for the first X number of months, they see a 30 to 40% increase in downloads of those apps. And that's clearly based on, since it starts immediately upon them putting that ad in their Flipboard thing, we know we're driving traffic to that too. The problem is once it goes to Apple, Apple doesn't tell you where the referrer is from. But
Does the model that we're talking about with Flipboard seem to be publishers are going to sell ads and share the revenue with Flipboard? I think some of the other social readers have had different models where they go out and sell a $200,000 video interstitial to Toyota. I think did one on
right. Or Zite has their science. I think science section is sponsored by Intel.
And Livestand had a whole program for I think living ads
right.
that I assume they are selling themselves.
Right. So that's true disintermediation of the publisher. You might as well get in on the action.
Yeah.
Yeah. Our thing is the publisher sells, and then they give us a teeny tiny percentage.
A tiny percentage. Yeah. That's the right thing to say. And you guys are not outselling. You're not going to build a sales force.
In fact, just the opposite. What we have been doing, because it's tricky. I mean, we all know. I mean, pity the poor magazine salesperson, right? It used to be, they got into this thing and it was print only. And then they started to have to sweat the web. And how do you sell that? And then, no sooner did they get comfortable doing that than the iPhone comes out and then the iPad. And now they're selling vertical apps and native apps. And then this thing called Flipboard comes along. And I wonder how many of them even own iPads, and have that sort of eat your own dog food experience with it. So it's very challenging. What we have been doing in some cases is when the advertiser comes to us, we'll put together a deal and then we'll bring it to the publisher with a little bow wrapped around it, and just and it's the same terms. We don't take a bigger percentage. The fact of the matter is, our business model is we don't survive unless you thrive. And it's predicated on that. And so, that's how we do it.
I want to see if there's any questions from the audience yet. If not, I've got another one for these guys. I do see a hand in the back here. We're trying to do mics because it's all being recorded.
Hi, my name's Todd from Magazine Radar. So I'm a Flipboard user and I love it. And I actually am subscribed to Forbes. One of the questions I guess I have for Forbes is, with 300 well-packaged articles per day, is there a risk of cannibalizing paid content as a result? Because I believe that the advertising will come on Flipboard and it will look great. But what does that mean for the print side?
So we've never had that print versus web mentality. The magazine is doing great, and the website kind of runs on its own. And our Flipboard presence is far more of our website than it is the magazine. But magazine stories do very well. But we don't have a paid content model ever. Except for it's all ad supported. But the first part of your question was what was it? It was what do I worry about
do you cannibalize paid content?
No, and we're only tweeting out maybe 30% of less than 30% of what we're putting out on the web. So it's already curated. It's a different animal.
Yeah, the cannibalization question is the one that always comes up. That's the first thing. And that's been the question in our industry since 1993. I remember being at Pathfinder, and that was the question. And this is what technology companies deal with all the time, right? And this is why Apple is giving money back to its shareholders, because Steve Jobs figured out that if you don't cannibalize yourself, somebody else will eat you. So you may as well do it, and you may as well figure it out, and you may as well beat yourself and be your own best competition. And so publishers like Forbes and many of our other partners get this, and they're everywhere. And they understand that there's only so much they can do in the world of technology, that their bread and butter is making really fantastic content. And let the technology companies do the technology.
And if you don't want to let Flipboard take wherever percent it is, then have a kick-ass mobile website using HTML5. That's the other place things are going. Is our iPhone app looks a lot better than it did a year ago, and we have a huge audience on it now. Just went up, because now they're selling how many iPhones or iPads a quarter. Once we port that over to a tablet, we'll have a Flipboard Lite. It won't be as good, but we'll keep every dollar.
We've got about 2 minutes left. Is there another question out there? I thought I saw another hand. If not, I've got a question. There we go.
Sorry, I just wanted to ask about Flipboard. You talked about Google Currents kind of putting the power of Google Analytics you know, also because they're filling and selling their ads based on that model. But for Flipboard, I didn't hear much about the analytics package that'll be offered. Can you speak about that?
Sure. Analytics right now are very, very simple. We basically report back to the publisher the number of subscribers, which are the people who favorite you and put your tile up on their TOC, and we report back the number of users, which is a larger number because, again, that will include the people that we refer from our hybrid channels, and we report the number of page flips, which many of you would recognize as page views.
And they break it down iPad versus iPhone now, which is good.
Any quick best practices, any quick learnings that you've seen? Anything that doesn't work very well? You mentioned long reads during the day.
Or in the weekend, or video at night.
Is video at the night good or bad?
Good.
Good, yeah.
Video.
I mean, our traffic very much mirrors, well, it's starting to change because we came out with an iPhone app at Christmas time. But, you know, iPad use has been pretty consistently nighttime use, long reads, sit back, sit on the sofa, lie in bed. Right. You know, where the iPhone stuff, we like, the things that we notice work are short, punchy, fast, easy to load, you know, not so much photo galleries, that sort of thing.
I was going to ask, we're out of time, but real quickly, visuals, should every item have a visual?
Yeah, we do it anyway, just because it's better for Google search, and it also looks better on Flipboard.
Yeah.
And we try not to even put articles that don't have images in our blended feeds because they don't look good. I mean, pictures are great. Everybody loves pictures.
It's gorgeous on Flipboard. So,
thank you.
Anyway, fascinating subject. Thanks very much, you guys. I'd like to thank the panel.
Sure.